So it's Father's Day weekend. Happy Father's Day to all the dads. I just want you to know that from my perspective, my respect for you is off the charts. My observation, maybe I'm wrong, but I think I felt over the last 10 years or so that for some reason, dads are actually experiencing more and more people kind of being judgmental toward them, kind of judgy toward them. Maybe you've experienced that, dads. It comes sometimes from kids, sometimes from teenagers, sometimes from adult children, sometimes from spouses. And I just want you to know that, man, I believe your role in your family and in our world is very critical. I think your words, especially words of encouragement and affirmation to your kids, they hold such a weight. So much so that your voice in your children's life, no matter what age they are, can be a place where they now feel acceptance and they feel courage and they feel confidence. They feel the love of a father. So very, very glad and thankful for the fathers in the room. So we've been doing this series over the last few weeks. Today is the last week. It's been all about the journey, and I've been telling you about Suncrest journey value the whole time. Today, I actually want to flip the question a little bit. So Suncrest has a journey value. Here's my question. Do you? Do you have a journey value in your life? And I'm kind of saying this from two perspectives. You can think through this with me. When I say Suncrest has a journey value, you might think I mean the organization has a value, but I don't mean the organization. Who is Suncrest? You are, and I am. And so it's not just that I want people to be welcomed however they are when they walk through the doors of our church building. It's that I want you to be a person where you live who says, people are welcome in my life no matter where they are. I'll love them just the way they are, and I'll love them enough not to let them stay where they are. And I just want you to think about how you personally live out the journey value that we collectively have as a church all the time. And again, on a weekend like Father's Day, to take that posture to your son or your daughter, to love them just as they are and make sure they know it, and to love them too much to just let them stay where they are. So, so powerful. Now, the whole idea is that the journey is the destination. And so I've been kind of repeating this, that it's a tension between now and later. And an excessive focus on destinations can actually cause us to miss out on this life. And I actually want to take just a few minutes actually to tell you a story from my life, because this very concept has really kind of rocked my world since 2017. So I've been around Suncrest for a long time, since 1996. And I've seen, amazing things happen, and I've, stepped into lots of leadership roles and lots of vision and lots of things that are next. My personality is a personality that looks at the future. I'm more interested in planning for what's next sometimes than living in the moment in front of us. And if you rewind to about 5 years ago, I was in a place in life where I felt like, okay, I kind of know where life is going. In fact, I had the next 20 years of my life charted out and pictured a lot of stability and even some enjoyment and success in those 20 years. And then my wife, Jenny, came home one day in the spring of 2017, and with a single question, disrupted my whole plan. She said, "Greg, what do you think about becoming foster parents?" I'm like, I don't think about it, actually. I don't think about it at all. And then she said, my wife's a teacher, she said, "There's these 3 sisters at my school who need a home. And I think maybe God's prompting me that we should be their home." And I'm like, whoa. First of all, foster parents, I told you I didn't think about it. And second of all, when you said it, I thought 1, maybe 2, definitely not 3. And here's what hit me. I thought, I have a plan. This is going to totally disrupt my plan. This is going to disrupt my plan for the next 20 years. It's going to disrupt my financial plan. It's going to disrupt my retirement plan. It's going to disrupt my raising our biological kids plan. It's going to disrupt everything. And she's like, yeah, probably will. And so, because we felt prompted to it, we went on a journey. And I'm going to give you the very short version. We pursued becoming the foster and adoptive parents of those 3 girls with all of our heart for about 7 months. And then it all fell apart. And it was one of the most heartbreaking things we'd ever been through in life. DCS called us and said, well, it's not going to work out with those girls, but maybe you could become foster parents for someone else. We said, give us a month. It was Thanksgiving. We said, call us after Christmas. They called on December 26th, and they said, we have a teenage boy who needs a placement for 6 months till he graduates high school. And I'm like, teenage boy? No. And we had pizza with him one night. He moved in the next day. And as many of you know, he graduated from high school, went into the Marines. We ended up adopting him as our son, Terrell. Just an amazing story. And then we fostered a couple other kids in and out of our home. And they called us 2.5 years ago, and they said, hey, you had a good experience with a teenage boy. We have trouble placing teenagers. We have a teenage girl who needs a home. It should be relatively short term. Would you do that? And we said yes. And then they said, oh, by the way, she has a baby. And we're like, well, we're still up for that. We're going to help her be the mom she needs to be to raise that boy. All right, let's do this. And then she moved in, and it wasn't a good experience. And within the first month, she ran away from our house twice. I've never had anything like that happen to me before in life. I was so scared. I thought we were responsible for her, and she disappeared. And the second time when she ran away, she didn't come back, and she left us with the baby. And then our posture was to say, oh, well, it didn't work out. We were up for a teenager, but we weren't up for a baby. So DCS, go ahead and look for other foster parents for this baby. And then COVID hit. And then I was at home mostly for 2 or 3 months in ways I'm never at home that much time. And he was at home. And Jenny was at home. And we fell in love with him. And now, later this summer, 2.5 years later, we'll adopt him. And the reason I tell you that story is to put myself as an example of someone who was wrongly focused at a destination. Had plans, had visions, had it all figured out. It was all going to line up. It was all going to stack up. But it was actually all about the future. And my wife, thank God, my wife, brought me to say, but what about right now? And it's changed our lives. It hasn't been easy, but it's been beautiful. And I think, any of you who are prone to your 10-year plan, to your 15-year plan or your 20-year plan, would you open yourself up to the idea that God has something in front of you right now? Would you allow him to interrupt your destination orientation and say, oh no, there's a journey and it's right here? I had someone ask me this week, happens fairly often these days. They were telling me, oh, their kids are grown and starting to move out of the house. And she said, I've thought about, maybe we should be foster parents. And I'm like, I always say the same thing. I'm like, well, of course you should. You should do it. But when I say you should do it, I actually don't mean everyone should be foster parents, because I don't think you should. I mean, everyone should say, what's in front of me right now? So I hope that you're living that and have embraced that over the last 5 weeks. All these images of how we can get so focused on the destination that we miss out on what's right in front of us. Jesus said it this way. He said, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I've come that they may have life and have it to the full. And here's what I want to say to you as we close the series. The most important part of your life is your relationships. The most important part of your life is your relationships. And what Jesus knows is that if you want to experience life to the full, it will happen because of your relationships. And actually, one of the things that the evil one works at, the enemy, the thief, as Jesus calls him here, works at, is he works to undermine things, to steal time from those relationships and to kill or destroy those relationships. You guys all know the song Cat in the Cradle? Yeah. I mean, Father's Day weekend, what a time to talk about it, right? But the whole story of that song is actually shining light on exactly how the evil one steals the most important things in life. I don't have time. I got to go to work. I got to make some money. I got to get the raise. That's exactly the way the evil one would work to undermine relationships. And then he'll work into your relationships. And this isn't just about fathers and kids or mothers and kids. It's about all of our relationships. He'll drop some things into relationships to destroy them. He'll insert a little bit of doubt, a little bit of gossip, a little bit of betrayal. Someone will get offended very easily. And the things that are most important, that actually bring the most to life, actually start to disintegrate. They get killed and destroyed right in front of us. That is exactly the way the evil one would work. So how many times have you heard me say this? When your relationships are good, life is good. That's the way it is. When your relationships are good, life is good. It actually doesn't matter how much money you make or what your title is or if you're living in the house you want to live in. It doesn't matter if inflation's high or if it's raining outside or anything else. When your relationships are good, life is good, and there's no set of circumstances that actually can make life good to replace what relationships bring. I saw someone this month make an observation about Jesus and his life, and it just kind of blew me away. I just want you to see what I saw. She's a professor at Wheaton College. She said, Jesus' life lacks most of the things we think are central to the good life. Romantic love, sex, children, private property, wealth, a fruitful career. Jesus had none of them. None of them. The exception? Friends. Jesus had a truly good and fulfilling human life by knowing and doing the will of God with his friends. So when I say life is good because relationships are good, that's what I mean. Now, I want to conceptualize this with you just for a little bit. You probably think about this. You have lots of people who are acquaintances in your life. You have some people who are friends in your life. And then last week I was talking about being authentic with your trusted circle. I want you to think about your life as it relates to these three circles. Acquaintances, that's just people who you kind of casually interact with. You're at a ball game with them. They're in your neighborhood. You work with them. They're acquaintances. Friends are people who know things about you, right? They probably know how many kids you have and where you live and some facts about your life. And then in that trusted circle are people who know not just facts about you, they know what scares you. They know what you celebrate. They know where you're hurting. They know where to support you. And I think for most people, we could have dozens, hundreds of acquaintances. But when it comes to that friendship circle, I want you to think about this. I think most healthy people have somewhere between probably 10 and 50 friends. Some people are more introverted, some people more extroverted. That's not good or bad, it's just different. Somewhere between 10 and 50. And I think most healthy people who live the life that Jesus wants us to live have somewhere between probably 1 and 8 people in their trusted circle. But it can't be 0. And so, I always say when your relationships are good, life is good. But this is also true. When your relationships are bad, life is bad. When your relationships are rich, life is rich. When your relationships are empty, guess what? Life is empty. When your relationships are conflicted, all of life is conflicted. But when your relationships are good, life is good. So I have a question for you. I want you to do a little self-assessment. Think about these 3 options. When I say if your relationships are good, life is good, maybe you're a person who says, yep, and I have that right now. I have it. That's the story of my life. I have those friends. We support one another. We mourn with one another. We rejoice with one another. I know some pretty personal things about their life. They know things about my life. I have that right now. Maybe some of you would say, oh, well, I used to have that. I don't have it now. I had it at one time. Some people will reach all the way back to like their high school and college years to think, oh, I think that's the last time I really had that. And others of you might say, I can't say that I've ever had that. And just before I move on in this message today, I want you to think about which one of these statements is true for you when it comes to relationships, friendships, being rich and good and beautiful. And here's how I want you to think about it. If you're a person who's sitting there and you're in this first category, you're like, I have that right now. First of all, just pause and thank God for it. And maybe even before you walk out of here today, text your friends and thank them for it. Because life is good for you right now because your relationships are good. It is a beautiful thing. And if you're in this category or this category, then actually what I want to do over the next few minutes is to describe for you a framework that the scriptures give us, that Jesus himself gives us, for how to think about friendship and how to step into a life that is rich. Now, I want to acknowledge something as I start. Life alone could be easier. And it could be safer, but it is not better. Many people end up alone in life. Many people end up lonely in life. And the reason you end up in that place is because truly, sometimes it's just easier. And sometimes it's safer. Listen, I get it. I do. A lot of you are tired. You're kind of tired all the time. And when you're tired, the default mode is to say, I'm just going to do what's easier. Some of you are stressed out to the hilt, or you have anxiety, or you're struggling through some mental health things. And when that happens, there's an instinct inside of us to say, man, I just can't do it. I just need life to be easier. And for some of you, you've had relationships before that you thought might be rich and beautiful and good, but then someone hurt you. Someone judged you. Someone betrayed you. And you just decided, you know what, it's safer. It's safer not to dip my toe back in that water where I could get hurt again. But my friends, I am pleading with you that if you want to have a life that is full of life, if you want to have a life that's marked with joy, marked with shared experiences, marked with the idea that you have support in your life and you live life together, if you want to have a good and rich life, do not default to easy. And do not settle for safe. Because Jesus' vision for you is that you'd have relationships, friendships, richness in your life that really is that description of life to the full. It's interesting that one of the best pictures of this came about right after Jesus had had his time on earth. He died, was buried, and he rose again. Jesus ascended into heaven. And right on that occasion, Peter, one of Jesus' apostles, decided to call people to become followers of Jesus. Now, maybe he had it a little easier because all these people, many of them, had just seen Jesus who was dead and was now alive. But on that day, 3,000 people responded to become followers of Jesus. It says they were cut to the heart. They said, what should we do? He said, repent and be baptized, every one of you, for the forgiveness of your sins and to receive God's gift of the Holy Spirit. And then we get a description of how those 3,000 followers of Jesus who were wanting to live the life Jesus lived, how they started to function. And this is what it says in Acts chapter 2. It says they devoted themselves to 4 things: the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. That's how they started to orient their lives. They're new followers of Jesus. They say, I have to orient my life. I have to devote my life to something. So it was to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. And I want to take just a few moments and look at this word fellowship. Because this idea of fellowship has such a rich concept behind it that it is the life that's truly life. It's life in sync, linked arms, laughing together with other people who are there for you in your tough times and celebrate your good times. That's what that is. And a little bit later in the passage, it's almost as if Luke, who's writing this, double clicks on fellowship for a moment. And he says, this is how it works. They continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes, and they ate together with glad and sincere hearts. And I think this is the vision Jesus gives to his very first followers. He wants them to take hold of the life that is truly life. He doesn't want them to play it safe. He doesn't want to take the easy route. He says, you're going to have to devote yourself to something. And then he starts to describe this. And the vision is that they would pursue these life-changing relationships. Now, I don't know if you think about relationships being life-changing, but this is the vision Jesus gives for us. And I know it's been what's happened in my life. Let me give you 3 images of where maybe you've had life-changing relationships. I know that I have. One image of that is that I have had people in my life be a safety net for me. Something was going to collapse in my life, or I was going to collapse because of things going on in my life. And people who were good friends of mine and who cared about me, they caught me. And I think my life would be entirely different if there weren't people there to be my safety net. Sometimes it's almost the opposite. I've had some people in my life who have served essentially as a catapult to me. They cast a vision for me, and I trusted them, and they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And they said, Greg, you could. Greg, you might. What if God's doing this in you? And their words in my life catapulted me to an entirely different place in life. I want you to have friends who will be your safety net and who will be your catapult. And I have definitely, thank God for this, I had definitely had friends in my life who served as guardrails, who saw me going down a road of life and starting to veer off center, to not be focused on the things I need to be focused on, not committed to the things I need to be committed to. And instead of letting me go off the cliff, they're like, hey, Greg, I love you. And I think I need to tell you, get back on the road. I mean, my life, your life probably would not be where it is in some of the most beautiful and powerful ways if it wasn't for relationships. And so the church is designed for this. And I just want to pull apart just for a few moments what Luke described for how you and I could move toward richer and richer relationships. First, he says, you have to invest yourself. It says, they devoted themselves. And this is so interesting to me because I think for some reason people have a default, maybe you do, that thinks, well, if relationships are going to happen, they'll probably kind of happen randomly. Or I'll just stay here and people will come to me and build a relationship with me. And Luke's vision of this is entirely the opposite of that. He says, actually, if you want to build rich relationships, you're going to have to devote yourself to it. And it was interesting that these 3,000 people who were baptized didn't see baptism as the finish line. They saw it as the beginning line. And then they'd start to devote themselves to these things, including the fellowship. And I want you to see something about the structure of this, because it matters for life, it matters for church, for sure. So they continued to meet together in the temple courts. So, of course, I mean, these are the new followers of Jesus. Where would they go together to worship? Where would they go in their big groups? They'd go back to their religious gathering spot, which was the temple. You could almost think of it as a church gathering. And then it also says they broke bread in their homes and they ate together. And if you haven't ever seen this, I want to let something blow your mind for just a moment. The way relationships, rich relationships actually work is that there's a thing you devote yourself to say, I'm going to put myself in proximity to other people in an organized way. There's a daily gathering at the temple. There's a weekly gathering at the temple. I'm going to show up. We're going to just meet together there. We're going to hang out. I'm going to be in a setting where people hang out. And then in that setting where a larger group of people are hanging out, someone speaks up and says, hey, you want to come to my house and have dinner? Hey, you want to go to breakfast and eat together? Hey, you want to grab coffee together? And it moves from this organized setting to something that's much more organic, where someone took initiative and leaned into someone else's life and offered an invitation. And then we saw around the dinner table, do we click or do we not click? Now, this might blow your mind just for a second, but you probably know this. Suncrest does not operate randomly. We have a reason for every single thing that we do. We don't always announce the reason, but I don't want you to miss this. Maybe you've been here for 20 years and you've missed this. We have a commons area. We spend actually quite a bit of money on coffee, today donuts, different things, because we want people to hang out in the commons. It's an organized place for proximity. I know your personality might be that you walk in here kind of intentionally 2 minutes late. I know none of you do that. And the moment, like maybe even before I say amen in my prayer, you're out. Hey, just so you know, you're not playing the game right. We've designed a space. We actually make you wait just a little bit when you check in your kids down there or when you're picking up your kids. We create a little extra space in the hallway down there so that parents can run into parents. We're just hoping that maybe a parent will say, hey, you have kids the same age as my kid. Want to have a play date? Want to come over for coffee? You want to do this? Is the whole idea. You create organized settings, but then the people who are in those settings have to take an organic step to go there. This is what all of our serving teams are like. We do serving teams to get things done, but we want to put people in proximity to one another, not so that they can all be best friends with each other, but so they might find their friend within that group. And that church becomes more than a thing you go to, and it becomes a place of rich relationships. This is why we have groups together. I got 8 guys in a group that meets on Saturday mornings. They're not all best friends with each other, but I'm hoping that when we're together, 2 of them will click with each other. They'll be like, hey, we have kids the same age. You want to go take them to the fair this August? This is the way it works. We just did these connect groups for this summer. Listen, again, we're not trying to hide this. Tuesday night, there's a bunch of people who loved gardening. They were sitting around a table in 98-degree weather, doing gardening together. And we're just trying to get 20 people around a table so they meet each other, so they connect, because we're trying to create the environment for these relationships. But organizationally, we create the environment. And then for each one of us, hear this, we have to devote ourselves to investing in it. You have to take the risk to say, hey, you want to go get ice cream afterwards? This is how relationships actually emerge. And it's all right there in Acts chapter 2. After that, I think this is how most people think about it. You have to envision the kind of friend that you want. And then we might think, go find that friend. Like you make a list of the kind of friend you want, and then you go find them, right? Actually, wrong. I hope you didn't put that in your blank in the app, because I'm going to change this word. You have to envision the kind of friend you want and then be that person. You might think that the route to friendship is to say, well, I'm looking for someone who will care for me. I'm looking for someone who will encourage me. I'm looking for someone who will spur me on. But thinking about friendship that way is a very fast route to not having any friends. The way that you end up in rich relationships is that you actually live out towards someone else the kind of relationship that you would like for them to reciprocate with you. This is the very idea of fellowship. And in the scriptures, this is so important. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Each one should carry their own load. What are the scriptures saying? They're saying, hey, to be a good friend, when someone has a burden, that's more than the load they can carry. Hey, step in. Help them carry that burden. Don't wait for them to help you carry your burden. You step in, help them carry their burden. And something could emerge. Don't overstep. Let everyone carry their own load. We're not trying to create or support overly needy people. It's just that you step in. You know, the image of the scriptures for all these relationships is the image of the one another passages. The Bible says, love one another, encourage one another, mourn with those who mourn, rejoice with those who rejoice, spur on one another toward love and good deeds. And while we might all love if someone did that for us, the path into a rich relationship is to say, oh, I will do that for someone else. And when they reciprocate, then we have something. And then you choose your posture. And it's constantly a posture of encouragement and authenticity. Did you see what Luke wrote? He said they ate together with glad and sincere hearts. And I think one of the reasons that we don't have rich relationships these days is that we don't appreciate how much weight people are carrying. That many people, though we don't like to admit it out loud, are actually carrying around some mild depression. They're discouraged about life. They're overwhelmed by something going on in their family. And what that means for most people who are walking around is that if you come to me just with correction, if you come to me with facts, if you come to me, like I just don't have room for any more. But if you come to me with gladness, with encouragement, if you're trying to build a friendship, this is the secret sauce. I hope that 4 out of every 5 sentences you say is an encouragement to the person that you're speaking to. You're building them up. You're noticing something in them and complimenting them. You're encouraging and affirming something about how they raise their kids or what you see in their life. This is actually the foundation to building a relationship, that we would encourage one another. So we do this with glad and then also sincere hearts. And friends, I know this is what I talked about last week, authenticity. But this is the place where something moves from a friendship to a trusted circle. And it is when you confess your sin to somebody, when you acknowledge your weakness, when you tell the true stories about the struggles in your family. And man, do I want that for you. Selfishly, I want it for our church. I want to be a church that doesn't just sit in rows and listen to a talk, who engages in the back of each other's heads, and that's their church experience. But for us to be woven together as a safety net, for us to be the voices in one another's lives that catapults people and helps them to clarify the vision that God has for their life. To be the kind of people who see someone starting to go off the rails and say, no, we're the guardrails. We keep you there. But most of all, I just want you to have a good life, the life that is truly life. And when your relationships are good, life is good.
I hope that this has been a meaningful experience for you, even online. And I want you to know that every time that we get together, both online and in person, we include a time of communion. This is a moment for people who follow Jesus to look back on life and remember with gratitude all the amazing things that God has done, our need for God right now, and to look forward with hope, knowing that God is with us every step of the way. So now is the time to get some food and drink to represent Jesus' body and his blood that was broken and poured out for each and every one of us. And during that time, we're going to reflect together. If you don't follow Jesus, that's totally okay. I'm glad that you're checking out this video. Go ahead and use this time to reflect on what you've heard so far. And with that, let's focus on the love of Jesus together.
just run for cover, but the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. I believe in signs and wonders. I have resurrection power. Still the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. Oh, my praise belongs to you forever. This is my testimony from death to life, 'cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'll testify. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Sons and daughters, bought with blood and washed in water. Sing the praises of the Spirit, Son and Father. Our God will finish what He started. Oh, our God will finish what He started. This is my testimony from death to life, 'cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'll testify. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. This is my testimony from death to life, 'cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. Oh, I'm alive. This is my testimony from death to life, 'cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'll testify. This is my testimony. This is my testimony.
Before you turn off this video, go ahead and hit the like, subscribe, and share button. And I want you to know that this video, this isn't the church. You are. So this week, I hope that you go and make a difference, that you go and be the church.